Hi, my name is Dr. Joseph Lau. Today I'd like to share my views about a book entitled Becoming Brilliant: What Science Tells Us About Raising Successful Children. Though before I forget, if you like the review, please click on like and please do subscribe to the channel. This book was written by Dr. Roberta Michnik-Golenkopf and Kathy Hirsch-Pasek, and it was published by the American Psychological Association in 2016. The version of the book that I read is 314 pages long, and it has a retail price of $15.46 on Amazon. The chapters were entitled Redefining Success in the 21st Century. Chapter 2 is the learning industry and the learning sciences, how educational reform sent us in the wrong direction. Chapter 3 is the skills needed for success for global. 4, hard skills and soft skills, finding the perfect balance. 5, collaboration, no one can fiddle a symphony. Chapter 6 is called communication, lines of connection. 7 is called toppling the king that is content. 8 is called critical thinking, what counts as evidence. Chapter 9 is creative innovation, rearranging the old to make the new. Chapter 10 is called confidence, dare to fail. Chapter 11 is called the report card for the 21st century. And the epilogue is called What If? The Reprise. So I'm going to begin by offering a general summary of the book, and then I'll discuss the strengths and weaknesses, and finally I'll give an overall rating of the book out of 100. So in general, as the author's note on page 14, the gist of the book is that educators and parents should prepare children to be, quote, happy, healthy, thinking, caring, and social children, unquote. The guiding assumption is that treating children like vessels to be filled with knowledge is not the most effective approach to child education. This approach, they claim, fails to prepare children to be the types of productive citizens America needs. It also fails to capitalize on their innate gifts, especially their curiosity. In essence, they suggest we broaden our view of what it means to be a successful human being to include more than just knowing facts and figures, which they refer to as content. Instead, they claim that children should be educated in 6 core competencies, or the 6 C's. These are content, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity and innovation, and confidence. The first 4 chapters focus on identifying, defining, and justifying each of these 6 C's. Chapters 5 through 10 each elaborate on the nature and importance of one of these 6 skills. At the end of each of the 6 chapters, the authors offer suggestions for how parents and educators can nurture these skills in their children. The final chapter tries to tie together all of their recommendations. So there are a number of strengths to the book, and so I'll talk about those next. First, both authors of the book have a strong background in educational psychology. They've done empirical research and they've published other books relating to educational psychology, so they're clearly experts on the topic of this book. Also, the publication of the book by the American Psychological Association lends authority to the claims made by the authors. In general, the book is well researched, it's clearly organized, and it's written in an easy-to-understand, non-technical language. Each chapter contributes meaningfully to the overall thesis of the book. Although it appears to be targeted towards educators, it's also relevant and readily accessible to other experts and to laypersons. The greatest strength of this book is its focus on core competencies that the authors claim each child should master. To support their claims about the importance of these competencies, the authors draw from a broad array of sources to justify their selection of these 6 specific skills. Their sources include scientific studies, educational research, and research conducted and published by various business organizations. For the most part, the competencies they select seem reasonable, though I'll say more about them in just a moment. Also, for each competency, they describe several stages of development. This is a valuable feature because it helps caregivers assess each child's standing, and it can also be used to guide interventions to desirable outcomes. Another strength of the book is that the authors provide numerous relevant examples of the concepts they talk about, and they give specific suggestions for how educators and caregivers separately can nurture each of the competencies. Their suggestions seem reasonable, relatable, and doable. One of the most valuable features of the book is never stated explicitly, though. In a sense, the authors are saying that teachers and caregivers should select a set of competencies and gear their teaching and rearing efforts to inculcate these competencies in children. Apart from the specific competencies they've selected, it's hard to stress enough the importance of this perspective. It basically tells us to adopt a target, their 6 competencies, and dedicate our teaching and child rearing efforts to reach that target. So rather than adopting a haphazard approach, this approach offers the benefit of helping to organize parenting efforts toward an achievable goal. It acknowledges that what parents do matters, and it advocates that caregivers consciously select outcomes for their children that are socially desirable and advantageous, not just for the children, but for America more generally. Now, in addition to the strengths, there are a number of weaknesses. One of the weaknesses of the book is that it's not really focused on parenting practices per se or parenting principles. Despite claiming to be a parenting book, it's almost entirely focused on achieving academic outcomes. In fact, the authors specifically state, quote, "Our skills focus on the learner rather than the teacher or the parent," unquote. So out of the entire book, a total of about 10 pages focuses on what parents should do to nurture their children. Though their suggested practices are specific and doable, it would have been helpful to either provide a model of good parenting or at least offer more general parenting principles. Also, there are two one-size-fits-all assumptions. The first is that all parents should engage in the same types of behaviors to nurture these competencies. This could be a problem since each child is unique. However, we can dismiss the concern if we think of their suggested practices as examples of what could be done rather than as inflexible prescriptions to what has to be done. In other words, we can do it in different ways. We can teach children in different ways. The second assumption is that these are the most important competencies for all children to develop. This is a more difficult concern to resolve. Their claim that these are the most important competencies for all children, in my opinion, is both misleading and debatable. It's misleading for at least two reasons. First, they ignore the fact that some of the C's they're talking about are already mentioned on report cards. For example, perseverance and citizenship. So it seems unnecessary to write a book to tell educators to do what most teachers are already doing. On the other hand, it seems like a good way to build a consensus. Second, as the authors acknowledge, these are not the only competencies children should master to succeed either in life or in school. Other competencies like good nutritional habits or handling stress are also necessary. So the authors are not saying that these are the only competencies children should master, rather they're saying that their six should be prioritized over other competencies. My greatest concern with the book has to do with their choice of competencies. Though it's clear that the competencies they promulgate are important, it's not clear that they're superior to other competencies. The authors should be given credit, though, for presenting an admirable array of evidence to support their claims that their competencies are important. But they don't present any evidence to support their core suggestion that children who possess their competencies fare better than other children. It's possible that they do, but maybe not. To be fair, there's no consensus right now among experts either about how many core competency children need to be good, productive citizens or what they are. And there's nothing wrong with presenting their own well-informed opinion about what the core competencies should be. However, equally compelling arguments exist for adopting different core competencies. For example, a strong case can be made for including emotional literacy as a core competency. There's a large body of research showing that children who have a secure emotional attachment to their caregivers, for example, have better outcomes than children that don't. There's also a lot of evidence showing that children who have good eating and exercise habits have better outcomes than children who have poor eating and exercise habits. This is especially important today in America because of our ranking in the world in terms of obesity. I think we rank like number 2 in the world in terms of obesity. Overall, I think the greatest value of the book lies in the suggestion that parents should be proactive in selecting the key competencies they'll nurture in their children, and also for a suggestion of what those competencies should be. It also gives good ideas for how to nurture each competency. So overall, I would give the book a rating of 20 out of 20 for the author qualifications. They're among the best qualified for a book like this. I give the book 15 out of 20 for the quality of argument, just because it doesn't only focus on parenting. I give it a 4 out of 5 for being informative, 5 out of 5 for organization, 5 out of 5 for language, and 5 out of 5 for excellent examples. I give it a 14 out of 20 in terms of relevance to parents because it does focus a lot on academics and teachers and evaluators. And I give it a 6 out of 20 in terms of being relevant to parents. Also because it focuses a lot on the teachers and what they should do. So that's my view. Hopefully you'll find this informative, and I will be providing other reviews of other books in the near future, so please do stay tuned. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe to the channel. So until next time, take care and good luck.